Hi guys, welcome back to Whole Wellness in this series on gaslighting. We wrapped up video number 5 talking about my sister, her affair, how it made no sense, how she issued an ultimatum to me. From the moment my sister began her affair in 2012 to 2018, it progressed for 6 years, most of that time in secret. And by the time 2018 rolled around, she issued an ultimatum to her soon-to-be husband. He finally wound up filing for divorce from his second wife. And one of the most heart-wrenching things for me to witness through the planning and everything leading up to their exchange of vows and wedding ceremony was my sister's wedding dress. And so thank you for tuning into Whole Wellness. My name is Anne, and the series on gaslighting was begun by me because my sister and I's relationship spanning a lifetime has been the single biggest and most obvious lesson of my life about gaslighting and what can happen to a relationship if we turn a blind eye, if we turn the other cheek, we ignore, we stifle our own feelings, pretend things aren't happening, make excuses, and cause internal torment or cognitive dissonance about our own beliefs and values and morals that are a direct contradiction to the behaviors that are being displayed. So welcome. And I'm going to leave it up to your discretion, as I mentioned in the prior video number 5, to watch the previous videos. I'm not going to do a big recap right now. I'm just going to let you know that in the prior videos, I gave the history, definition of what gaslighting is, the history of my sister and I, the family we were raised in, and we're going to jump right into this video number 6. Just as I had found out about the affair that my sister was having back in 2012 via email under the guise of my sister wanting my opinion about potentially starting an affair, and I was going, no, stop, don't do it. And she kind of made all the excuses, and and I was like, oh, okay, so you don't want my opinion. She also asked me my opinion and wanted to involve me supposedly in her choice of a wedding dress, which I, of course, as her sister, was excited about. We shared a couple of screenshots of different dresses that we had seen online with each other via text. Not very much. At one point, though, she said she would just buy a dress online. She'd look online and buy it online, and I was like, oh. I cautioned her not to. I had heard horror stories, as everybody does, of people ordering something very important like a wedding dress online, only to have it shipped much later than the intended or stated ship date, and then not having time for a seamstress to do alterations to the dress, and there's a lot of stress and chaos because the dress that was ordered shows up and is not at all the item that was pictured. So I cautioned my sister. I said, we have half dozen bridal dress shops within an hour of where we live. We can take a Saturday, take a weekend. We can travel out of town, out of the area, and find a lot more bridal dressing shops to go try some on and see how they felt and see what she thought of herself when she looked at herself in the mirror, and then actually know what she was getting. But one day I arrived at her apartment after work. We were meeting to discuss wedding plans when she announced that she had that day bought a wedding dress online. Again, she had asked for my input, sounded genuine, and then discarded it. And so I was hurting again, as usual. I did a lot of hurting back then, but I allowed it. I tried very hard not to be hurt, because she seemed really convinced that this was the dress she wanted, and it was her choice. It was her wedding. It was her dress. It was hard not to feel dissed, not just hurt, but dissed. Like, I kind of want your opinion, but oh well. Like the affair. I kind of want your opinion, but I'm going to disregard it. But I forced myself, yet again, keyword, forced myself to zip my lip, remembering the ultimatum, and to swallow my hurt and my disappointment over missing the dress search experience. I really wanted to have that with my sister. I thought the girl time, the bonding, the shopping, the trying on, the meals, the laughter, all that stuff would just be a precious memory. And I thought, if she's going to marry this guy, at least we could have fun with the process. I told myself she knew what she wanted. She knew what she was doing. And then she showed me a picture of the dress, and I was so confused. It did not even look like my sister. I was like, it was almost like trying to put a square peg into a round hole. I was like, this doesn't add up. It doesn't fit. It doesn't match. So the dress was a form fit, full floor length, form fitted, fishtail, like flare at the bottom, off the shoulder, full lace dress. And it was a dress that was being modeled by this very gorgeous, long auburn hair in an updo, size 2, probably 6 foot tall model. In the picture, it looked angelic. It looked sexy. It was beautiful. It was stunning. It was a stunning dress, but it wasn't my sister. My sister, first of all, has sandy blonde hair, and it's very short. It's pixie cut, as I mentioned in the prior video. So cut very short, like to the nape of her neck, which is why when she wears like cute little earrings, it looks good on her. It's fitting. She's also a plus size girl. My sister has never been feminine. There's not an ounce of femininity in her. She didn't even get her ears pierced until she started crushing on this guy at her church and wanted to get together with him. Like as an adult, as a grown woman, then she got her ears pierced. She has never had her hair dyed. She's never had her hair done, like colored, permed, nothing. She's never had her nails done. She's never had a manicure or acrylics, gels, nothing. She's never worn makeup. Like maybe she's worn blush or maybe even lip gloss at one time. Yeah, when I say this girl is very plain Jane, she is very plain Jane. She only owns 2 pairs of shoes that I know of. It's a big pair of snow boots and a pair of sandals. So she wears the boots in winter. And I say sandals, but they're like hiking shoes / sandals. They're Keen, you know, the hiking sandal. And I'm not exaggerating. She literally has 2 pairs of shoes. And when one wears out, she buys the exact same pair of shoes, brand new. And she wears them for years. And then when they wear out, she buys another pair of the exact same thing. She never has owned anything else. She just wears those 2 things. I don't think that she even owns a skirt or a dress. She wears a Carhartt that is dark brown, like chocolate brown, a Carhartt. A men's Carhartt jacket in the wintertime. When I say that my sister is not feminine, I mean she is not feminine in any way, shape, or form. And there's nothing at all wrong with that. I've never had an issue with it. I never thought there was a problem with it. And to this day, I don't think there is a problem with it. What was wrong was that the dress that she picked out as her wedding dress contradicted the very essence of who my sister was. It didn't match. It felt to me like she was looking for a dress that would sell her husband on this image she had in her head of being a bride. It didn't feel like, oh, this man and I are connected at the very core of our soul, and I want to look beautiful for him as me. No. It looked like she was doing a sales pitch for someone else. I felt like she was trying to make herself into the bride that she thought he wanted, and I didn't know what to say. But I do remember feeling her disappointment in my lack of reaction. But I couldn't lie. I'm not a liar, so I couldn't feign excitement and, oh, I'm so impressed with the dress. I just didn't understand how she could have hoped for squeals of delight from me, to be honest. But it had happened once before when she told me that she was going to have an affair with this guy. And she wasn't about to let anyone contradict her delusion again. There was no way. So she kind of shrugged and she goes, well, you know, it'll be fine. It's ordered. So I had been in 4-H as a youngster and I knew how to sew. And so she blew off my concerns and said, well, I've ordered it. This is what's going to work. This is what we got to work with. And that was the end of the discussion about my sister's wedding dress. It was just a waiting game at that point. We just had to wait for it to arrive. And then it did arrive. And I was horrified when I first saw it on her. It looked absolutely ridiculous. It pains me very much to say that, but it's very true. It was painful to see her in this thing, this getup that didn't make any sense off of her in a picture, much less on her. It was like things were trying to be forced. Things were being forced. And I had this horrible feeling inside me that I couldn't convey to her because she wouldn't want to hear it. And she would deny how terrible it looked. And I felt bad. I felt guilty about the honest feeling that I had inside me. And instead of her being open and receptive to honest feedback, she refused to hear anything other than that which she wanted to hear. So I knew that there was nothing I could say. That was the benefit of trying dresses on in the bridal shop. There was no commitment. You try it on, you say it sucks, it looks like crap, it's not your style, it's not your fabric, it's a little too low cut, it makes you look like an apple or a elephant or whatever. You move on to the next dress. There's no commitment, there's no regret. But she had already purchased this dress, paid for this dress, it had arrived, the commitment to the dress was done. This was the dress. And it was an absolute disaster. The fit was horrendous. The lace fabric at the top, because it was off the shoulder, was loose and floppy all across the top. Her arms around the bodice, under her arms and the back. There was no boning in the bodice of this dress. And it was an off the shoulder, skin tight, form fitting dress. The zipper down the length of the back of it was bulging and rippling, so it wasn't even straight, laying flat on her back. The dress itself was too long on my sister because my sister's not that tall. She's 5'5", 5'6", I think. So it was dragging on the ground by inches. I would say maybe 6 to 8 inches. My sister could not walk in heels. There's no way in heck my sister would have worn heels on her wedding day, even just down the aisle. She has never worn heels in her life. It wasn't going to happen now, besides the fact that they were having a beach wedding and it was all rocky. So she couldn't wear heels. She was going to be dragging this dress across the top of rocks. It was just... But for some reason, there was no way that my sister was going to admit that she had foobarred the wedding dress, that she may have messed up one of the most important decisions on what should have been the most important day of her life. She shrugged off all these major flaws with this dress and said, we'll make it work. We'll figure it out. I didn't understand how we were going to fix this dress. And she said, because I could sew and knew how to sew, I could just do the best I could with it and make it work. And I went, all of a sudden I was like, what? To be given that responsibility when she didn't even appreciate the fact that I had already cautioned her not to order the dress online in the first place. Now she was saddling me with this seamstress responsibility. I've never worked on formals before. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was already frustrated about so much other stuff, but now she was saying I could just fix the dress. But as I said, I would have done anything for my sister. This was my sister. This wasn't a neighbor. I did what I could. I literally just dove in because I figured, what do I have to lose? If I completely ruin the dress, then she will be forced to buy a new dress, and hopefully we'll go to buy a dress in person. But I thought, at least I could make it a little bit better and try. And so I did. I took in a bunch of extra fabric at the top around the bodice and around the armpit so that it could at least fit snugly around the top. I put boning in the bodice so that it would stand up straight, and I tried to flatten the zipper with extra boning and for taking it in. And I took, I think, like 3 inches off the zipper. just like stitching the fabric over the top of it. And a girdle helped, but she had to buy like a commercial grade girdle to get this thing to stand up straight. Despite all of my efforts and the girdle and everything, it still looked On the day of her wedding, my sister and I were in a pop-up tent, pinning the heck out of her dress just to get it to stay put so that she could walk down the aisle and get some pictures taken. I had a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that day that she did not look dazzling. And with a little bit of effort and a few different decisions, she could have been dazzling. My sister should have been dazzling. She looked pretty because my sister is pretty. She's got perfect skin, beautiful blue eyes, and she was all dolled up, of course. But my sister deserved to be handed everything on a silver platter to her on her wedding day. A man of character with a heart of gold that was full of integrity and not a lying, cheating, schmoozing coward. She deserved a gorgeous, perfect fitting wedding dress that personified her on her wedding day and wasn't just a symbol of their whole wedding and relationship. Forced. I was very uncomfortable throughout my sister's wedding that day. And I felt like I shouldn't be allowed to be there since I didn't support them. And I didn't genuinely feel an ounce of joy or love. It felt so forced and fake. And I'd been smiling and faking my own happiness. So maybe it fit, but I hated how I felt. Hated it. But I did it for my sister because I love her. Because she had given me an ultimatum and made me choose. And I had chosen her. Now I look back on that time and everything is so much clearer to me. I knew back then that something wasn't right, but I ignored my instincts about it because I didn't know what else I was supposed to do. I wasn't willing to lose my sister. Fast forward to March of 2022. I created my first video on gaslighting before I knew all of what I know now. Just a few weeks before I shot that video, out of nowhere, my sister had texted me what I now call the first ass-chewing text. After which, at my request, we made arrangements to meet in person to talk and clear the air. And I was thrilled that she was willing to and said yes this time around. Because remember, back in 2020, when we had the simple misunderstanding, as she so lovingly refers to it, via text, when I was new to therapy just a couple months in, mid-2020, I had asked her to talk and she had refused 3 times. So we never got resolution. And then out of the clear blue, she blows up at me via text. It came out of nowhere, blindsided me. She read me the riot act and I was totally confused. It was completely unfounded. I had no awareness that she had been angry at me, that she had been internalizing these feelings. I was like, what the heck is she angry with me for now after a couple of years? And why did she take so long to speak up about it, to talk to me about it? Especially after turning me down the first time in 2020 when I basically begged her to talk to me. And I thought at that time I had lost my sister and I had went through this process of grieving the loss of my sister at that time. And here we were again with this text. She blasted me and it was this long text. And that's why I figured we should meet and talk. But in anticipation of us meeting to talk, I did my homework. Because by that point, in March 22, I was out of counseling by a couple of months. I had gotten out of counseling, I think it was November of 2021. So when this blasting email from my sister came in March of 22, I was a little bit better prepared. I reread all of my sister and I's old texts. I created a timeline. I drafted some thoughts. I did some journaling about how I felt and what came first, the chicken or the egg. And I wanted to focus on the truth of the sequence of events from the prior 2 years, from 2020 when we had the text misunderstanding to March 2022. When I went into our talk, I wanted to make sure that I had calm emotions and a clear head. But I was very enlightened by doing the preparation for our talk, by some of the stuff I discovered as I laid out the timeline and the events and the facts of what had happened first, second, third, from 2020 to 2022. I didn't even at that time go all the way back to 2012. I was just looking at what had happened between 2020 and 2022 when I prepared for this talk. I started to feel a knot forming in my stomach. I could see a trend in my sister over those 2 years of her deflecting blame onto me for things that happened, for misremembering things via texts and conversations. In her ass-chewing text, she was making things up that didn't happen. And I began to grow angry and very defensive and resentful towards her because she had sent me this big long ass chewing text, and it had been incredibly unjust of her to send this big ass chewing text to me after I had already made efforts to try to talk to her 2 years before. And then she comes out of the blue with this ass chewing text, and I was like, whoa, hold on here. But I knew I needed to get a rein on my emotions, even though I was angry as I was planning for this talk. I forged ahead with my preparations, made sure I went into the talk armed with just the facts and the truth, pushed my emotions aside because I knew that in order for me to get through this talk and be successful, I needed to just address the facts, just address the truth so that we could reach an understanding. And I hoped for the best, but the conversation did not go even close to what I had hoped for. And we're going to dive into that in video number 7 in this series. And I'm sure that when you watch that video and you hear some of the things that we were saying to each other, you're going to relate to a lot of that. If you're being gaslit in your relationship, you're going to relate to, if you haven't already up to this point, some of the feelings that I had been feeling with my relationship with my sister over the years towards her and this man she was becoming involved with, and some of the second thoughts I had and some of the undercurrent of what I was feeling, some of the doubt, my tail tingling. You'll want to stay tuned for that video. I hope this series on gaslighting has been helpful for you guys. This story is absolutely intended to be beneficial and helpful to you, not to throw my sister under the bus because I adore her to pieces. It's just that I've got to adore her from afar. I will have her back, come hell or high water, till the end of time. If she ever needs me, it's just that we can't spend a lot of intimate time together, unfortunately, because it just breaks my heart. That snag that happens with someone who's not healthy, it's a painful road to walk, but once you realize the writing is on the wall, then it's really simple. I really appreciate you guys tuning in to this video, and I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. Until next time, bye from Anne with Whole Wellness. Take care.